Good morning, sports fans. We're your hosts, Chad and Ethan Larson. Today we're going to bring you in the huddle.
A lot of fan backlash about our last video being so long. So this one we're going to keep it a lot more brief. We're only covering two topics today.
Yep, and speaking of those two topics, first we're going to start off talking about U.S. men's soccer, kind of the state of the program and see where they're going to be moving forward. And then we're going to move on to the Kyrie Irving knee injury. So all Celtics fans and basketball fans, keep your ears open. And speaking of that, Ethan, we're going to go ahead and start off with U.S. men's soccer. Tell me a little something. You're the soccer expert, so tell me what the state is of the team right now.
Well, thankfully the interim U.S. men's coach, can't think of his name right now, irrelevant. He's not going to be the coach in 6 months, so it doesn't really matter.
Fair enough.
He named a very, very youthful squad for this upcoming friendly against Paraguay tonight. There were 8 uncapped players, for those of you that don't know, 8 players that have not appeared for the national team yet, which is a lot out of a 23-man squad. So very interesting to see him go with such a youthful side, especially as one of the criticisms of U.S. soccer in recent times has been their lack of changing, lack of bringing in new players. And also a big omission from the squad was Christian Pulisic, who I think is basically the crux of all the problems of U.S. soccer.
Yeah.
The fact that a 19-year-old can win U.S. men's national team player of the year is promising, but at the same time sad, because the 18-year-old should not be the best player on a national team.
Yeah, kind of. I just want to piggyback off a point you made. I look up and down the roster, and the most caps I see for any player is DeAndre Yedlin at 49, which still is kind of inexperienced, or it's about a moderate amount of experience, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think he was brought in very young just because of his dynamism, but now he's had to become sort of a leader, with them trying to switch the squad around and them bringing in youth. And also, Captain Michael Bradley not in the squad.
Yeah.
Neither is Clint Dempsey, the two people, or Tim Howard, the 3 people that have been captaining the side for the past few years. So very interesting to see who's going to wear the armband against Paraguay.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, we talk about all these players that are uncapped and have very little experience. I see right now a couple of guys with just 1 or 2 games under their belt for the national team. What do you think is the biggest reason for that? Are we just trying to get players with more experience, or are we trying to do a complete 180 where we're just trying to go in a different direction for the future? As many of you probably know, the U.S. didn't qualify for the World Cup this summer, so obviously a lot of changes probably on the horizon for the U.S. men's national team.
Well, I think similar to what the German national team did about 20 years ago now, about 15, 20 years ago, is what they did is they failed at the, I think it was the 2004 European Championships, and so they completely overhauled their system. They started doing the same thing. They brought all the deadwood that wasn't winning anything, they brought them out. They started bringing in younger players, investing a lot more. That's what U.S. soccer is doing. They're reinvesting a lot of the money that they're taking from the pay-to-play policy, which, for those of you who don't know, U.S. soccer, or travel soccer, and to get a lot of exposure in America, you pretty much have to pay a lot of money to get all that exposure. So they're trying to reinvest all that money back into the program rather than just making profit out of it. And now you're getting a lot of people coming through, like Tim Weah, who's only 18 years old, playing for PSG. Wes McKennie, who's only 19, playing for Schalke. He scored his first international cap late in 2017. So it should be interesting to see how they play against a side like Paraguay, who is pretty decent national team.
They qualify?
They did not qualify, I don't think, for the World Cup, but they're still a decent side, especially compared to such an inexperienced U.S. side.
Yeah. Kind of like another thing you just that just made me think about was I notice now a lot of the guys you're talking about are playing for clubs across the world. I feel like before, maybe like around 2008 and 2010, there were a lot of guys that were mostly MLS players. For those of you that don't know, MLS is the soccer program in the Professional Soccer League in the U.S., which a lot of the players for the national team had come from before. And now we have a lot more guys that we're plucking from teams. They're still U.S. citizens, but they're plucking from guys all over the world. Kind of talk about what the benefits of that are.
Well, that was kind of like what I was talking about earlier with Christian Pulisic. I was saying that he's kind of the crux of all the problems with the men's national team. Obviously, he's a brilliant player, great talent. I love that he's American, so I can watch him play for our national team for many years to come. But like you said, him playing abroad, I mean, it kind of shows the lack of opportunities for you in the or like the lack of standing that the MLS has on the world stage. I mean, every U.S. player, you ask any 16, 17-year-old kid, would they rather play in LA for the Galaxy, who is probably the most well-known team in MLS, or would they rather go across and play for an Arsenal or Borussia Dortmund or any other team in Europe for that matter? And they would definitely choose the
latter half.
yeah, they would definitely choose to go overseas. And that was another thing, like I was talking about with the German national team. They basically bring in all their players now from their into the national team from their Bundesliga. There's only a few players from outside of the Bundesliga, their top flight, that they bring in from abroad. So, you know, it really does start with your domestic league and the state that the MLS is in. While they are expanding, the quality isn't really getting much better. It's just they give the illusion of it by bringing over these aging stars from Europe, from those top leagues, and then they give the illusion that they're increasing the pedigree of the league when really it's pretty much a laughing stock on the world stage.
And just one more quick thing to say about that before we move on. A lot of the stars, a lot of international stars, I know most famously Zlatan Ibrahimovic has been the latest. Guys who, when they get older, kind of past their prime on the downside of their career, they switch over to the MLS. Do you feel like that could have any effect on making the MLS better or making it more popular, and then we could possibly reap the benefits of that here for the men's national team?
Well, I think that we can kind of draw comparisons to something that's been coming to the forefront the past few years was the Chinese Super League. The Chinese government has been pumping billions and billions of dollars into the league, so they can do the same thing. They've been kind of doing the same thing that America's been doing. They've been bringing in these aging stars, paying them humongous wages, way more than anyone else in the league is being paid, and then that's the way they attract those stars, hoping to grow the league that way. But also, they've set restrictions saying you can only have a certain amount of foreign-born players so that those domestically grown players can still continue to have an impact and continue to get game time. So I think as long as they're bringing in those stars to bring prominence to the league, but while still giving those young American players a chance, I think it still could help the standing of the league.
All right, well, that's great. Thanks for updating us on that. And just to let you guys know, for those of you who want to follow the team, they have 3 friendlies coming up here in the next couple months. Like Ethan said, they play tonight, March 27th, against Paraguay. The next match is going to be May 28th against Bolivia. And they're going to have another friendly on June 2nd against Ireland. So be on the lookout for the men's national team. Next, we're going to move on to Kyrie Irving, point guard for the Boston Celtics. Just came out the other day that I know that's weird to say, point guard for the Boston Celtics, but especially
Point guard with the Bullets.
Yeah, I know you. I know you. As a Cleveland fan, are probably hurt to hear that. But
it is what it is.
Yeah. He just went down with knee surgery the other day. Report says he's going to be out 3 to 6 weeks. Kind of just talk about what you think of, or what you've seen from Kyrie this year. He's averaging 24 points a game, probably having one of the best years of his career. Just talk about what you've seen from him. I know you watched him closely in Cleveland, so.
I'd say, well, you could always see his talent in Cleveland, even early in his career, when there were questions over whether he was a leader, whether he was a true point guard. There were never any questions of whether he was talented enough to be in the NBA or to be an all-star in the NBA. So, obviously, the skill and the drive has always been there from him. Really, it's just been a matter of him having to live in LeBron's shadow for the past few years, because obviously you're not gonna outshine LeBron in any team. So having that kind of weighing him down, he could maybe argue. Maybe this year it's freed him up. Being able to run the whole offense through him has really been able to free him up and let him play his own game, which obviously has been to the benefit of himself and to the team that he's playing for, the Celtics, being second in the East. So what do you think is so with him being out 3 to 6 weeks, what do you think the implications would be, even in the first round? Because right now they're matched up against Milwaukee in the first round. So what do you think the implications could be, maybe for a potential early exit from the playoffs now that he's out?
Yeah, I know Celtics fans definitely do not want to hear that he's going to be missing any playoff time. If you look at all the bottom of the East right now, the bottom 3 teams are the Miami Heat, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Washington Wizards. And I believe those 3 teams are separated by like 2.5 games. So any of those three opponents would be pretty scary for Boston, especially if Washington gets John Wall back. Everyone remembers their lovely playoff series last year. But to specifically talk about the Bucks, the team that they would be matched up with right now, I don't see it boding well for Boston if Kyrie will be injured, or even won't be, or if he won't be able to play at all, or will be injured at all. Because Milwaukee with Eric Bledsoe guarding the point, they also have Dellavedova, who's familiar with Kyrie. Probably not going to be able to lock him down, but if Kyrie's hobbled at all by that knee, then it'll be tough for him. And then obviously Milwaukee has the Greek Freak, who
I was about to say, normally the best player wins the series, and who's really the best player in that series?
yeah,
It's close, but
yeah, to me, especially if Kyrie's hurt at all, I don't think it's any question. I think the Greek Freak is probably, I mean, to me, he's one of the 5 to 10 best players in the league. So I feel like he would be able to push Milwaukee through. They're just such a talented team. I feel like once they start to put all their pieces together, then they'll be scary. So not even just for the Celtics, but for any team, Milwaukee is going to be dangerous. And that goes to Kyrie. He's actually played 60 games this year. He's been out the last 7 with this knee injury. The injury actually was they had to clean up a knee injury that he occurred in 15 when he was in the final, or in 2015 in the finals. So just for those of you that don't know, they just had to clean up some of the stuff that had gone wrong with that surgery back then. So.
and also even if he manages to come back, do you think that they would feel obligated to rush him back because they still do have other really good players like a Jaylen Brown or. Here's the real question: do you think Gordon Hayward is going to come back this season?
Yeah, I don't see if Kyrie doesn't. First off, I definitely don't. To answer your first question, I don't think they'll have any obligation to rush Kyrie back. Especially for those of you that followed Isaiah Thomas's situation closely, they pretty much forced him to play last year, and
Exactly.
as you can see, that did not turn out well for him. So I think they'll be super cautious with Kyrie now, especially. I mean, he's only 25 years old. So
They just brought him in too.
Yeah, exactly. His first year with the team, so they don't want to rush him back or possibly diminish his career just over, one playoff series. I don't think anyone thinks Boston's going to win the title this year, so to win 1 or 2 playoff series, I don't
Boston
think
fans don't think that. Boston fans think they're going all the way. I mean, the way that, especially earlier this year when they had like that insane winning run,
Yeah.
it was like we're back, this, that, and the other. So, do you really think that Boston fans aren't expecting them to win the title?
I think, obviously going into the playoffs, every team's fan base is going to say, they're going to find a way to talk themselves into, my team can win. But I think realistically, with Kyrie hobbled, and even with him healthy, I don't think Boston has much of a chance this year. Their young guys, I feel like, are just too inexperienced and inconsistent. But one thing I did want to talk about, the Kyrie injury, that opens up more playing time for my guy, Terry Rozier, T-Rose. Let him know. But for those of you that don't know, that's my guy. I have a heavy heart for Terry Rozier. I love watching him play. And the Boston offense, the way it works, it's heavily revolved around the point guard. So I think that bodes well for Rozier. He just put up a career-high 33 a couple nights ago. Shout out to him. And it'll just be nice to see him get that heavy playoff experience. And then maybe next year, once their young guys get a little bit more experience, they'll be tough to stop next year for sure. Gordon Hayward coming back, young guys another year. Boston, watch out for him.
So, what does this mean for my boy Aaron Baines?
Aaron Baines.
So, what does this mean for Aaron Baines and Marcus Morris? That's all I need to know.
Well,
The rich man Morris twin.
Marcus Morris, I tell you what, shout out to him for hitting that game-winning shot the other day against the Thunder.
That was the worst shot I've ever seen in my entire life.
I don't know. I mean, he gets it done consistently somehow. And then Aaron Baines, he's just a big gawky center. I actually kind of like what they're doing with him this year. He's been playing well. He's had a lot of games where he's actually played pretty well. So shout out to Aaron Baines.
So we got to wrap this up pretty soon, but also any potential for a dark horse, since we were talking about upsets in the first round, any potential for a dark horse in this year's playoffs to maybe make the second or even conference finals?
I'm going to let you guys know right now. I'm going to put them on blast. Toronto, I have questions about them.
Oh, I thought you were saying, I was like, they're first in the East. I don't know how much of a dark horse that is, but
No, right now they're slotted to play Miami in the first round. And
you already know what Kelly Olynyk does in Game 7, so.
okay, that's fair. But yeah, Miami, they took them to, I think they took them to 6 or 7 games a couple years ago in the playoffs. D Wade's been playing pretty well for them after pretty much being a corpse for the whole year in Cleveland.
The whole year.
The
past 4 years, he's been a corpse.
True. But I like what Miami's been doing lately, especially as of late. I think they could cause a big problem for Toronto if they match up with them in the first round. And then if they win that, they could get a second round matchup with the Sixers or the Pacers. Another couple teams with not that much playoff experience. So I think Miami could, we might look up and see Miami in the conference finals. So don't be surprised.
I'm just glad we're having this whole conversation, and then the Cavs are going to end up getting back again.
Okay. I think that's enough for today. So we thank you all for watching. Don't forget, subscribe, like the video, and comment any topics that you guys want us to talk about in the future.
And share it.
Yeah,
share
definitely.
it. Tell all your friends about it. Put it on your Facebook, your Twitter,
Take
your
a
Instagram.
picture.
Yeah, send it to them. Anything. I don't care.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, man. Appreciate
Peace.
it.